Tuscaloosa to frenzy.
Firing. Touchdown, Alabama.
SEC champions, Alabama, Crimson Tide.
We talked about Alabama.
Step back three. Money. And the Alabama Crimson Tide will roll into the Final Four.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide and welcome to Tide TV This Week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Lillian Everest. And Lillian, it was a wild weekend in college football. 5 of the 11 top teams fell, and unfortunately that included the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, Roger, they called it Upset Saturday. The Crimson Tide had just been named the #1 team in the nation after the win over the Georgia Bulldogs. And going into the matchup against Vanderbilt, the Crimson Tide had won 23 in a row over the Commodores.
But penalties, turnovers, and the inability to slow down the Vanderbilt offense and stop the doors on 3rd and 4th down proved to be too much to overcome. Vandy jumped out to a 13-0 lead with the help of an improbable deflection off of a pass to Ryan Williams. Jam Miller got the Tide on the scoreboard first with an 8-yard touchdown run to make it a 13-7 game. After another Vandy touchdown and a field goal, Miller scored again to make it 23-14 at the half.
On the opening drive of the second half, Alabama cut the deficit to just 2. Jalen Monroe took it in 14 yards untouched to make it a 23-21 ball game. Vanderbilt put 10 more points in the board to stretch their lead to 12, but just like against Georgia, when the Tide needed a play, Ryan Williams rose to the occasion.
Williams made a leaping grab, somehow stayed in bounds, and hit the turbo button as he backpedaled into the end zone for a 58-yard score. But the Commodores were almost unstoppable on offense as they added a touchdown and a field goal again. Alabama responded with another Ryan Williams touchdown, this one on a reverse from the 2 that made it 40-35.
The Tide kicked the ball off to the Commodores with 2:44 to go in hopes of stopping the Doors offense and get the ball back, but that would not happen as Vandy held on for the 40-35 win.
Obviously, extremely disappointed, frustrated. I mean, you name what it is. That's what everyone is in the locker room right now. And you prepare, and it's positive energy all week long. I really do think our guys prepared hard. There's some things that we're going to look back on tomorrow and be really frustrated about. You don't like talking what ifs, and that's going to be the situation we're going to be dealing with tomorrow. But the guys in the locker room just talk about there is only one option. It's to move forward. It's get back to work. I feel we got a great football team. We weren't at our best today, and we're going to find out really how much we care about each other and what it looks like moving forward. So we've been tested in different ways, really a lot of the games here this season, and this is a different type of test for us now in our response.
Had a huge advantage in time of possession as they kept the ball for over 42 minutes to just 17 for Alabama. Commodores also won the turnover battle, getting an interception and a fumble from the Tide while not turning the ball over. Commodores also had 26 first downs to just 17 for the Tide, including 4 of those coming on penalties by Alabama.
Jalen Monroe completed 18 of 24 passes for 310 yards and a touchdown, while Jam Miller led the Tide on the ground with 45 yards and a couple of scores. Ryan Williams continued his streak of scoring a touchdown as he is now tied for the lead in receiving touchdowns in the SEC with 6. We'll get to see the Tide's response this week as the Tide will be home to take on South Carolina at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Kickoff for the Tide and the Gamecocks is set for 11 a.m. on ABC.
And the 3rd Saturday in October matchup between Alabama and Tennessee will take place next Saturday at 2:30. That game from Neyland Stadium will be broadcast on ABC as well. After next weekend's matchup with Tennessee in Knoxville, the Crimson Tide will be at home for homecoming on October 26th. There will be the bonfire and the pep rally on Friday, along with a homecoming parade on Saturday.
Stay right with us. We'll head out to the practice field to talk to one of the Tide stars on defense. We have that and more coming up next, right here on Tide TV This Week.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, visit your local Ford dealer, proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
It is just as loud here at Coleman Coliseum tonight.
I thought the whole crowd was unbelievable. I wouldn't miss anything you could possibly be at this season because it's going to be a special season.
Alabama fans at Coleman Coliseum have been so good all year long.
What a scene at Coleman Coliseum.
Let's fill Coleman every time we get a chance to fill Coleman. Let's just support this team because it's not that often that you get to put a team of this caliber together.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. Crimson Tide got back out on the practice field this week on Tuesday. Alabama practiced 3 days this week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as they prepared for this week's matchup with the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Our Christopher England caught up with one of the stars on the defensive side of the ball after practice for this week's first off the field.
He joins us now from the Tide's indoor practice facility.
I'm Christopher England with Tide TV here inside the Hank Chris indoor practice facility, and I'm joined by defensive lineman Tim Smith, fresh off the practice field. Tim, how's it going out there today at practice?
Good. A lot more energy. Definitely needed that, but practice was good today. You know what I'm saying? Everybody came out, matched each other's intensity, energy, made sure we got all our corrections done, and went about the day as we should.
I know you didn't get the outcome you wanted in that last game, a very tough Vanderbilt team. Just kind of talk about that game. Like, what do you feel like the difference was? You stopped them on first and second a lot of times, but it's that third down, fourth down. It was kind of tough.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a pretty good team, pretty good quarterback as well. Very, you know what I'm saying, able to move around the pocket, complete some plays that shouldn't have been completed. But that's us. One thing I've learned being here 4 years, man. It's all about execution. You know what I'm saying? It's not to take any credit from anybody else or any other team, but a lot of their plays came from mis-execution on our end. You know what I'm saying? We didn't communicate, tell this guy to stay here or that. So like I said, today we went out and got everything corrected and made sure we handle business.
What has the vibe been like at practice so far this week?
Intense. Everybody making sure we understand exactly what we got to do in every situation, scenario, no matter what down it is, what distance we are on the field. Just making sure we understand exactly what we got to do and everything.
The great thing is you still can accomplish everything, all your goals, everything you set out to accomplish. So just kind of talk about that. Like, what are your goals and going forward, and just how do you go about just obtaining them?
I feel like everyone's goal is to win the Natty, but mainly for us is to go 1-0. Win the next day, win the next rep, win the next minute, whatever we're doing, you know what I'm saying, making sure we go 1-0. Whether that's, you know what I'm saying, being on time for meetings, making sure we going in to get treatment on our bodies, just making sure we're going 1-0 with everything.
You turned the page this week, South Carolina coming in, a very tough South Carolina team. They've already beaten Kentucky, played LSU really close. Just kind of talk about the Gamecocks and their offense and just kind of preparing for them.
They have a pretty good offense and a back as well. You know what I'm saying? I played with one of their backs, Raheem Sanders, back at the crib, but you know what I'm saying, it'd be fun to be able to go against him, you know what I'm saying, shut him out a little bit, make him bounce it out east and west so he can't run through my A-gap. But it's been pretty good, man. We just got our installs and everything yesterday, making sure we're covered and making sure we understand everything and who we are playing as far as like personnel-wise. But this week has been good with preparation. I mean, though it just started, but everything's been good.
And lastly, it's going to be an early one on Saturday, 11 o'clock, but that kind of is in your favor a little bit because you practice early every day. You're already at this time. So just kind of talk about that. You know, your body's already kind of conditioned for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think for me, I try to think of everything as like a practice. I don't try to put anything too extra on it, worry myself out, stress myself out. So literally games for me is just team run all day. You know what I'm saying? Stop the run, stop the run, stop the run. Affect the quarterback. But yeah, that's pretty much our mindset going into it.
I appreciate it, Tim. Good luck this weekend and roll Tide.
Thank you.
Tide TV This Week is presented by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide, the University of Alabama, where legends are made.
It's us against the world now. It's us who put in the sweat, the hours of practice, the moments of sacrifice that nobody sees. And while they could talk all they want, they are not in this room. We are. Champions aren't made when everything is going right. They are made in moments like this, where things get tough and you're staring down adversity. That's when you dig deeper. That's when you prove to yourselves, to each other, and the world that nothing can break us. It's us and only us. We're going to fight every game, every practice, every moment, like our backs are against the wall. So let them doubt us. Let them write us off. We know who we are, and we know what we are capable of. From this point on, we've got something to prove. It's us against the world.
I'm
interested in making enemies today.
Everything you put into it is right out in front of you. Let's go get this thing.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. 7th-ranked Alabama is back at home this weekend as the Tide hosts South Carolina at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
For a preview of this weekend's matchup between the Crimson Tide and the Gamecocks, our Christopher England joins us once again.
Alabama and South Carolina face off against one another on Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday. The Crimson Tide leads the all-time series with 13 wins to just 3 losses. Despite being in the same conference since 1990, Alabama and South Carolina have only played 9 times in the past 35 years and just once since 2010.
That matchup happened back in 2019 in Columbia. Tua Tagovailoa led the Crimson Tide to a 47-23 victory over South Carolina in Williams-Brice Stadium. South Carolina enters this year's matchup 3-2 overall with a 1-2 record in the SEC. The Gamecocks have a 7-game losing streak against ranked opponents, but led 16th-ranked LSU late into the 4th quarter in Week 3 when the Tigers scored the go-ahead touchdown with just over a minute to play. The Gamecocks had a chance to tie the game, but Alex Herrera's 49-yard field goal attempt floated just to the left of the upright as LSU hung on for the 36-33 win. South Carolina ranks near the bottom of the SEC in almost every category offensively, as the Gamecocks average 28 points per game compared to over 44 for the Crimson Tide. Alabama also averages over 100 yards of total offense more than South Carolina. The Gamecocks offense has also allowed the most sacks in college football this season with 22 through 5 games. South Carolina has used 2 quarterbacks for the majority of the season, Lenore Sellers and former Auburn quarterback Robbie Ashford. Sellers has been the primary signal caller and handled every pass attempt last week against Ole Miss. On the season, Sellers has thrown for 555 yards in the 4 games he's played, with 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Raheem Sanders is top 10 in the SEC in most rushing categories as he leads the team with 315 yards on the ground. Sellers is second with 200, and Robbie Ashford is just behind him with 172 rushing yards on the season. The strength of the South Carolina team has been the defense, primarily up front. Kyle Kennard leads the SEC in both sacks and tackles for loss. Kennard has recorded 5.5 sacks and 8.5 tackles for loss. Joining Kennard up front is freshman Dylan Stewart, and he has been a force as well with 8.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and is tied for the SEC lead with Kennard and several others with 2 forced fumbles. South Carolina is 6th in the SEC in total defense, allowing just 296 yards per game, 40 yards per game better than Alabama, and is allowing just 19 points per game, 1 better than the Crimson Tide. It will also be a homecoming for former Crimson Tide quarterback and head coach Mike Shula as he returns to Bryant-Denny Stadium as a senior offensive analyst for South Carolina. In his best season as the Crimson Tide head coach, Shula guided the Tide to a number 8 ranking with a 10-2 record with a victory in the Cotton Bowl. As a player, Shula led the Tide to 2 top 15 finishes, including a dramatic come-from-behind win over number 7 Auburn in the 1985 Iron Bowl, one of the most memorable wins in Iron Bowl history.
He made it!
Kickoff for Alabama and South Carolina is scheduled for 11 o'clock. The game will be broadcast on ABC. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
The standard is Alabama.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. The Alabama soccer team hosted Auburn for the Iron Bowl of Soccer on Thursday night.
Going into the matchup, the Tide had won 5 of the last 6 over the Tigers, including 3 in a row.
For a recap of this year's Iron Bowl of Soccer matchup, our Mary Reagan Bolig joins us now.
Alabama soccer was on the road to take on the 14th-ranked Auburn Tigers for the Iron Bowl of Soccer. Both teams stayed at 0-0 for the first half, but fast forward into the second half and Alabama is the first to make a play. At the 51st minute, Jessica Skorka finds Kate Henderson and she kicks right into the bottom right of the goal to put points on the board for Alabama. Auburn showed some steam only 7 minutes after Henderson's goal to tie the match at 1-1 from Carly Hatcher and a penalty kick. Both teams kept strong and had multiple attempts to score, but both teams held off each other for the Iron Bowl of 2024 to end in a tie.
The Tide will be back here in Tuscaloosa to host the Texas A&M Aggies for a 6 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Reporting from the Alabama Soccer Stadium, I'm Mary Reagan Bullock with Tide TV.
Thank you, Mary Reagan. The Alabama volleyball team was in action this past Sunday as the Tide looked to pick up their first SEC win of the season as the Tide hosted the Georgia Bulldogs at Foster Auditorium.
Our Paige Riley joins us now for a recap of that big series between the Tide and the Bulldogs.
Alabama volleyball had an exciting weekend at Foster this past Sunday as they picked up their first conference win of the season over the Georgia Bulldogs.
The Crimson Tide and Dogs split the first 2 sets before Georgia won the third 25-22. Georgia had the match advantage heading into the fourth, but Alabama jumped ahead to win 25-18 to force the fifth set, which Alabama won 15-11 for their first conference win of the season. Alabama had 4 players with double-digit kills, and Sophie Agee led the way with 19, and she was joined by teammates Kaylee Palmer with a career-high 14 kills, and Jordan Towns, who tied her career-best 10 kills. The Tide also had a strong defensive performance on Sunday with Chase Campbell leading the way for her team with a career-best 9 blocks, and that puts her close to her 300th block of her career. This win marked Alabama's first home win over the Bulldogs since 2015.
Rashinda Reed and her team will be on the road this weekend after their Friday match against Mizzou. The Tide will head to Fayetteville on Sunday for a 3 p.m. matchup against Arkansas. Roger and Lillian, back to you.
Thank you, Paige. The Crimson Tide volleyball team will be busy over the next few days as they will have 3 matches in 6 days, concluding with Wednesday's matchup against Auburn here at home in Foster Auditorium.
The Alabama cross-country team has gotten off to a great start to the season. Going into this past weekend's race, the men had won 2 of their 3 races, while the women had finished first and second in their first 2 races. Competing this past weekend at the Sean Earl Lakefront Invitational in Chicago, the Alabama women's team used a trio of top 5 finishes to claim the team title. Doris Lamangole won her second straight 6K title this season with a time of 18:48.18, also earning her SEC Women's Runner of the Week honors.
Brenda Tuohy earned the SEC Women's Freshman of the Week honors as she finished in 3rd place in her first collegiate cross-country race. The Alabama men's team swept the top 3 spots in their 8K race to finish second, just 5 points shy of the top spot.
Dismas Lakira took home the men's title in his collegiate debut at a time of 22:41.88 in the 8K run. That also earned him Men's Runner of the Week honors. Vincent Kiprop and Dennis Caputo finished 2nd and 3rd behind Lakira.
In their first race as an official sport of the Southeastern Conference, the Alabama rowing team had a successful start to the season at the head of the Oklahoma. The Tide earned multiple top 5 finishes, including a 2nd place finish in the Collegiate 4+ and a 3rd place finish in the Collegiate 4+ 500-meter grand final. Alabama will return on the water on November 9th as they host the head of the Black Warrior River for their final race of the fall.
The Alabama women's golf team also had another top 10 finish this week. Crimson Tide certainly finished strong the final day at the Illini Invitational, moving up 6 spots on the leaderboard. Tide finished with their 3rd top 10 finish of the year at 6 overall with a total of 7 under par 8.57. Madison Frick shot a career best 6 under par 66 in the final round, recording 7 birdies, moving up 28 spots on the player leaderboard to finish tied for 29th with teammate Harriet Lockley.
And over at the Joe, the Alabama baseball team began fall practice this past week. The Tide will hold practices and scrimmages throughout the week at Sol Thomas Stadium. Admission is free to watch the Tide practice. Alabama will host Florida State on October 26th at 11 a.m. For more details and dates and times on that, visit rolltide.com.
Back, you know, it's crazy that we're kind of at this spot, and a lot of work goes into putting this group together. Assistant coaches, I think, did an unbelievable job getting a really, really good group of dudes together. So excited to get out there and get going. We've had a really good start, good month of individuals, and now we'll kind of creep up into some team stuff. So excited to get rolling with the boys out here. I think they're ready to go and they're chomping at the bit. So it should be a good start to the fall.
Roll Tide, roll! The Alabama
Alabama Crimson Tide. Cunningham again, shot good, and she's fouled. There she goes, and there's Barker. Timmons there, setting her team up.
Possibly the dagger for Alabama. Right to the rim. Got it.
Kicks, Nye, right corner, three. She hits it. Nye steals the inbounds. Left side to Timmons. Layup good. It's a 2-point game.
Kayla Keyshock, the transfer from Sanford. A key ace for the Tide. Again, they go to the transfer, love it, and she misses. And we are all knotted up in one set apiece. Free ball for Alabama. Here's Agee, and we are headed to set number 5. Here comes Palmer, and there's your match.
Milrow looking deep, down the sideline. It is caught by Williams. He springs free, and he is in for an Alabama touchdown. Forced out of rhythm here, has to run, unloads deep. 2 men there. It is caught at the sideline. Journey Bernard. They reverse it out of there, looking for the corner, and it is Ryan Williams into the end zone.
Those are our ATI plays of the week.
Now it's time to take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope. Kaylee Palmer had a career day as she helped lead the Crimson Tide volleyball team to their first SEC win of the season. The sophomore from Ohio finished with a career-best 14 kills and 7 blocks in the Tide's 5-set win over the Georgia Bulldogs.
And Doris Lehman-Gole earned her second consecutive individual title as she took first place in the 6K event at the Sean Earl Lakefront Invitational. Her time of 18:48.18 leads the SEC, also named the SEC Women's Runner of the Week.
And Dismas Lakaira captured his first individual win of the season as he took first place in the men's 8K race. His time of 22:41.88 was the fastest across the SEC on the weekend, as the freshman from Kenya also earned his first conference honors as he was named SEC Men's Runner of the Week.
Congratulations to our Players of the Week, again brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
We hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Tide TV This Week.
See you next week, everyone. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,